So, like, here's my experience of the game as we watch the credits. I'll try to be thorough about this. I wanted to play this game for two reasons. For the first reason, like everybody else, it's a From Software game, you know? These devs, the directors, the whole company, that studio is just doing amazing things. And because of that, like many of you, I was compelled to buy this game and play it. And I don't regret that. Definitely don't. But when I was looking at gameplay, I knew it came from this long existing franchise, the old Armored Core. I wasn't really sold on it. I was thinking it was definitely going to be good, but it was going to be good for the old fans. I wasn't exactly convinced that it was going to be for me. But one small detail changed my mind completely. The main guy that did the combat in this game, he was the guy that did the main combat in Sekiro, Shadows Die Twice, which is like among the best of the From Software games. I think it's crazy underrated. Like it's an insanely good game, like insane, bonkers. And so when I learned that fact that the two combat devs were actually the same person, that really made me want to play this game. And I think I can feel the influence of him in this game, especially with the melee weapons. And you can feel the influence of Dark Souls in this game and the bosses and the melee weapons, etc. I'm not a long-standing Armored Core fan, but I would like to think that those guys are pretty pleased right now. This game seems pretty awesome. It seems directly as like a thank you and like a present to those guys that were fans so long ago. Is this the best Armored Core game? Maybe. I'm not sure. You'd have to ask them. It's definitely a modernized version of it in terms of graphics and whatnot. It seems like a lot of the gameplay is still the same. The boss fights, like every single one of them, except for one, I think, was like literally amazing. Like S tier bosses. I can't say that about Elden Ring. I think this has better bosses than Elden Ring. Admittedly, they're a lot less. But this is this whole point I've been trying to make for like a year and a half now. The quality of the bosses is way more important to me than the quantity. And this game has quality bosses. The only exception I would say is I wasn't really crazy about the one Crusher guy. I'm not sure what his exact name is, like Demolisher or something. Or he has his two like spinning gear arms and they like slam together like this and they like slam down. He has like volcanoes coming out of his head. I'm not crazy about that one, but it was cool. It wasn't like an F tier. It was fine. All the other ones, like the Chopper, I don't know all their names. The Chopper is an S tier. That thing's awesome. The music is sick. The spider that like flings around, it turns into like sword arms and like slices you. That thing is so sick. It's not gimmicky, but it spams a lot of stuff, but it's still so sick. Like the spectacle is there. Obviously, I forget her name. The Melania-like one that you fight in that pit of water in the abandoned city. That is like one of the best From Software fights ever. That boss is literally like amazing. That is an S plus. That boss is so freaking sick. I have 1,000 awesome things to say about it, but I want to be concise about my take on the game. And then obviously this one is really cool too. This one is probably an S tier. But overall, like the 5 or 6 bosses that I mentioned, like so many S's, that is quality, and I really really appreciate that. That's awesome. I think the levels, I'm not gonna say they're uninspired, but they seem like they're just so much easier than the bosses. And one part of me appreciates that, but the other part of me appreciates the challenge of fighting and like always having a tense moment. And I think the level design had some things to be desired. What was strange to me was like it felt like inconsistent. Not in terms of quality, but in terms of length of the missions. Like literally there's missions in this game that are like 2, 3 minutes at the shortest. And then there's missions like that one when you're running into the core infected bot in that pit I was talking about, the Melania like one. That level is like an hour long level, which is insane. Depending on your build. It could be shorter if you have a broken build. But it has like the roly poly guys down below. That's where you get the Moonlight Greatsword. And there's like some not a mini boss, but like 3 or 4 armored core dudes that you fight. They're mini boss type things. That level's insane. But then there's those other ones that are like 4 minutes, 5 minutes. And I don't really understand why that's the case. I think I would have preferred like in the whole game maybe 10 gigantic levels, like 10-hour long levels or something, and then have that full arena. I didn't even talk about the arena. The arena, all the arena battles are awesome. I love the concept. I love that you can just go straight down the list and just fight them, and you get the OST points or OS credits, and then those can strengthen your build. It's like such a awesome side thing you can do besides the campaign, but it helps you in your journey on the campaign. That's what's important. It's not like this meaningless thing. It's not like PvP where you sort of do it for like a sense of pride and sense of self-worth, I guess, fulfillment. This will literally help you get better in the rest of the game. And I think that's an awesome like combination right there. What else? The customization in this game is freaking like S plus, triple S tier. I can make anything. I can make my dude look like a dong if I wanted to. And that takes balls. Okay. All the armor options, all the gun options, all the everything options, paint, luster, everything is so awesome. I haven't seen a game in such a long time that gives you so much freedom to make your dude look how you want to look, which is amazing, and I really appreciate that. And I think that's what a lot of the old Armored Core fans really, really like, is the customization. There's probably like 24 weapons for every single one of the channels that you can put a weapon, like right shoulder, left shoulder, right arm, left arm. There's probably like 2 or 3 dozen weapons, and that's crazy because they all feel so good. They're not all viable in all interactions, but they all look so freaking cool. All the bazookas look dope. And from what I understand, another cool thing is that once you beat this game one time, there's new content that's actually unlocked, which is different for every Souls game and Elden Ring, except for Dark Souls 2, which is one of the reasons I like Dark Souls 2. I don't know if I'm exactly the target audience for it. I am a huge Souls fan, and I definitely appreciated those aspects in here. But I still really feel like I'm on the edge about the whole giant mech things. Those are the things I praise. Now let's move on to a couple of the criticisms that I have right off the bat. And this all might change in time. I'm not exactly sure how I'm going to feel about it a year from now, because I'm absolutely going to replay this game. This game like begs for you to replay it. So I think one of the biggest criticisms that jumps out to me, besides the length of the levels that I was talking about earlier, is like in some levels, like especially like the first and maybe second chapter, some of the environments honestly feel maybe uninspired is the word. They just feel super bland. And I know that fits in with the story. I know that fits in with probably how Rubicon is the lore of the world. But like you're just seeing all these concrete buildings and you're seeing just snow everywhere, and like it just feels so samey. It looks cool for like a few of the missions, but there's only so many times you can see a snow-covered area with like the same concrete buildings and think, dang, this looks awesome. And I know that not everything has to look graphically perfect, but I felt like there was a lack of artistic style there, in my opinion. Like, especially compared to Elden Ring or the Dark Souls games, where it's like every area has such a varied feel to it, and the architecture is like so cool. The architecture in Elden Ring is so like inspired and so awesome and varied wherever area you go to. Compare that to this game, I think it's lacking. There were a couple exceptions, like gosh, that one planet with all the sort of like leaning buildings. I don't know the exact name of it. That is like literally one of the coolest levels I've ever seen in a video game. It looks so sick. But then compare that to like the snow-covered concrete buildings from like the first couple levels, and you see, I would argue, a disparity in quality. Another one of the really cool levels that I thought stuck out to me is like you fight the old junker dude that has the flamethrower, and like you're jumping down on top of like these broken like railways, and like they're sort of tilted. And I'm like, wow, I wish the whole game had varied levels like this one does. You know what I mean? So that, I think that might be my biggest criticism of the game, is I think some of the architecture and some of the level visuals could have been more interesting and more varied. I'm trying to think off the top of my head what other criticisms I have. I think I would have liked to see at least one human at some point in the game. I don't know if that's like a crazy taboo thing in the Armored Core series, but like sometimes I felt the lack of humanity took my attention away from the game. Like a tiny small thing that I would have appreciated if they had like a head icon at least next to the person when they're talking, not just like their call sign or whatever, their image. I don't know if that's really taboo in the community of Armored Core. I don't really care. I would have loved to see a little bit of humanity, not like full on human cutscenes like Halo or something, but meet me halfway. You know what I mean? Let me see a dude walking around every once in a while. And that brings me to another tiny criticism I have is like I really don't think you feel the scale of your Armored Core mech in that many places. Like occasionally you'll look at a building and you'll see that the ladder is like this big and your mech is like this big, and then you'll be reminded like, oh, my guy's actually probably like 30 stories tall. I wish they would have done more to remind me of that because that's something that I think is really awesome about a giant robot. Like if there was ways that they could remind me that I'm not just operating somebody that's like the size of a human, but the size of a skyscraper, pretty much, that would be sick. That's one thing I thought about a lot actually. Like they could have put various level assets and like maybe even tiny people walking around in like a crowd, and that would be so sick if you could just plow through them and kill everybody in the crowd or something. The soundtrack is really awesome. I This is a hot take, but I like the soundtrack of this a lot more than I like the soundtrack of Elden Ring. That's totally subjective though. I like the aesthetic and I think more work went into the quality boss fights in terms of the audio and the score. Audio, I said that word. I think the audio is pretty much S tier. I think some guns, like the main Gatler machine gun, I wish you could hear the bullets a little clearer. Maybe there's some messing around in my audio settings I need to do, but that's getting into the nitty gritty. But yeah, I think I covered the basics of my first playthrough, my things I thought were really cool and really awesome, and a couple of the criticisms I have. This isn't the best game I've ever played, and it's really an awesome game still. I don't know if it did enough to bring it out of the niche for me. I think probably in time it will come out of the niche for me when I replay this game two or three times. I don't know how transformative the new game pluses are going to be, so that will definitely affect my idea of what this game means in a positive light. I can't imagine that's going to make me think it's worse when the new content comes. But overall, I almost have nothing but positive things to say. It's so sick, and it's cool to take sort of a look back at what happened before Dark Souls in a modern light. I think if you're like vaguely interested in this game, you should definitely try it and definitely see. I think if you're a hardcore Souls fan, I definitely would recommend it just so you can see what the company came from, like I was talking about. But that's going to be my take on Armored Core. I think right now it's sitting at like an 8.5 in my mind, but I totally think it has the opportunity to become like a 9 or a 9.5. But yeah, that's going to be my opinions, my take. If you have any questions or anything, just let me know. I'll be happy to answer them. But that's going to be me logging out for now. Peace out. Thanks for watching.